For a lot of folks who are building agents today, one of the biggest headaches that you might be having or facing is how to manage MCP servers. And I have faced this problem myself. I build a ton of agents, both at my workplace as well as for personal use. And one of the key challenges I've been facing is how do I manage all the MCP servers I need? Whether there are MCP servers that are publicly available, like through remote hosting, or MCP servers that I build that I want to make available to myself. You start to see that this becomes a really big challenge. In a previous video, I showed you how you could build your MCP servers. And of course, you can deploy your MCP servers to any good cloud hosting solution. And in some cases, that would be the right way to go. If you're a huge enterprise, as an example, and privacy and these types of things are important to you. So maybe you want to go ahead and, build your own MCP server hosting infrastructure. But I think for the vast majority of folks, it's going to be really difficult for you to host every single MCP server that you need or figure out how to make it available to yourself. So in today's video, we're going to be looking at a tool that I came across that is helping me to do this, really making it super easy for me to get access to MCP servers that I need. And they provide a way to host MCP servers, as well as a way for me to also publish my own MCP server. So we're going to be going through this tool called Smithery. This is not a sponsored video, but this is a big pain that I'm facing. And I'm sure a lot of you guys out there are facing the same pain. So this is something that is really helping me solve this. Now, in terms of what they have here, they talk about having 7,176 skills. So they have a ton of MCP server. And basically, if you're trying to think about what skills actually are simply the specific attributes or tools that are within a specific MCP server. So as an example, you could see this Supabase MCP server, right? This is the Supabase community MCP server. Now, if you look at this community MCP server, you could see the different tools that it has here. So it has about 17 tools. So you can see all the different tools, and they make it possible for you to also interact with an MCP server as well directly. All right. So now they also show you how you could deploy these MCP servers to your clients. Now, remember how MCPs work. MCP servers are basically the tools, the prompts, other types of resources that are hosted for your agents to interact with. Now, on the client side, you could be interacting with your MCP server through, through ChatGPT or Claude Desktop or your Claude Code or Cursor or Codex, or within any agent that you might have. So maybe you built a LangChain agent, or you built a Crew AI agent, or you built your agent on Mastra. Wherever it is that your agent is, you could basically connect to a server like this. And they have also built in things like authentication to make it easier for you to be able to use this. So this is an example of one of the MCP servers that they have. So we're going to be diving in and seeing how we can add some of these MCP servers to our system. So let's go ahead and start by configuring this. So you can see right here, if I'm going to connect to my Supabase MCP server, I need to provide an access token. So this is the first step. So in this case, for Supabase, as an example, I'll need to go grab my access token from Supabase. I'm going to put that token in here, and then we're going to see how we get access. So I'm just going to go grab my access token for a second and then return. So I got my access token from Supabase right now. I'm just going to go ahead and save the configuration. And now we should be able to go test out our MCP server, see if it actually works. Now, one of the things actually I like about Smithery is that you could test the capabilities directly inside Smithery. So let's test out our MCP server. So we've put our access token already. So we could just say, list out all the tables in my website project. So I have my website hosted on Supabase as a database, and I just want to see all the tables I'm currently using. So let's use that as a test. All right. So here we can see that the agent is asking for permission to use this specific tool, which is about listing out projects. So I'm going to go ahead and approve that. So the response here lists out a bunch of projects, which is great. And then it's also asking me to list out the tables because it wants to then go list out some tables. So I can approve that. And now it's going to show me all my tables like agent, categories, all that stuff, right? So this is just coming directly. So this is how you can very, very quickly connect to something like Supabase. Now, what if I'm trying to use this inside my Claude Code or inside ChatGPT or something of that nature? Like, how do we connect this specific MCP server to those tools? Now, all right, so there are a bunch of clients that we can use here. So let's select one of the clients, which is the easiest one to select. I would say Claude Desktop. Let's see how we set it up for Claude Desktop. Okay, so here you just have to basically copy this. Now this contains a key, so just keep that in mind when you're using these tools, because what Smithery is doing is also creating like authentication for your server and protecting them and things of that nature. Okay, all right. So let's say I want to use this. I can grab this stuff from here and I can go into my terminal. So I love to use Warp as my terminal. All right, so we're going to do this. All right, so would you like me to restart Claude app to apply changes? Yes. All right, so now we are in Claude Code. So let's go find our MCP server. So I'm just going to go ahead and go to tools, and we should see our Supabase MCP server right here. So now I can just ask a simple question. It's going to go ahead and try to use the MCP server. So here it wants to use Supabase MCP server to list out the projects. I'm going to allow, it says that there's a project called website. It's going to collect that and it's going to go ahead and list all the tables. And once it's done listing the tables, it's going to go ahead and take that next step to do the additional sort of query that I'm asking it to do, which is basically using sort of execute SQL, which is one of the tools that is there. So it's going to allow once, it's going to go pull back all the posts that I have. So it's going to check the structure. So it's saying, okay, now let me get more information. I'm going to allow this. So it's going to execute even more SQL queries. All right. So here it's saying here are the tables that are inside the website project. And in the post table, it's telling me these are the contents. And there are 3 published blog posts in there, talking about LLMs, talking about automating web research, and this. And these are all stuff that are definitely in my table. So what has happened here, we've been able to deploy the Supabase MCP server pretty quickly without having to sort of do a lot of setup, a lot of hosting and stuff like that. So that's what you could do very, very quickly with Smithery. Now, the other way to use Smithery is going to be around integrating into my agent. So we're going to be jumping into an agent. We're going to build the agent out, and I'm going to show you exactly how you can connect your agent here. Now, the final piece we're going to be looking at is how to also publish an MCP server. So if you've built an MCP server and things of that nature, you could very, very quickly publish it. So for this, we're going to be using a simple agent. I'm going to be using a simple LangGraph agent for this. So let's go ahead and set this up. So I'm in my tutorials folder. And by the way, my tutorials folder contains like a bunch of different walkthroughs that we've been doing all this while. So you can go check it out. I'm going to drop the link to the GitHub. It has different things, you know, kind of talking about how MCP servers work, how to build different MCP servers. And this is just basically where I keep some of the things that I'm working on, some of the examples and stuff like that. So you could use that as reference if you want. So for Smithery, we're going to explore a few different options. So I'm going to go ahead and do a UV init over here. All right. So first by installing UV add MCP CLI. These are the environment variables we're going to need, by the way. We're going to need the Supabase MCP URL. We need a Supabase MCP API key. So Smithery is going to give us these. So it's a URL they've generated as well as an API key. And this is really what they're helping you do very, very quickly, just to make it to simplify how you manage your authentication. So you're not exposing your Supabase authentication or anything like that. Now we need a model for our agent, so we're going to be using OpenAI here. So, but for now, let's just simply go ahead and run through this sort of MCP client example. Now, basically, we are using the MCP library, and we're importing a client session, and we're also importing a streamable HTTP. And this is how to kind of set things up. So we have our API key, which we want to grab, and then we want to basically construct our server URL. All right, so this is our base URL. This is essentially what we got actually directly from Smithery. And then this is how we're interacting with our client. So for now, we're just basically listing out all the available tools in here. So if I run this, so UV run MCP CLI example .py, this should simply just return all the tools. So this is showing us all the various tools that we have inside our MCP server. All right, so let's build out our agents. Now we're going to be building a LangGraph agent. So to do that, we need a few things. Now we need an open API key. Now this is in addition to all the MCP credentials that we already have, our MCP server, our API key, and our Smithery profile name. We also need to set up tracing for observability. So using LangSmith, now you could be using LangFuse or anything else, but always good practice to have observability turned on in any of the projects that you're building. All right, so now let's go in and take a look at how we have built this out. Now we're using the MCP package directly, and we're going to be using it in combination with our LangGraph MCP adapter tools. So basically, we're going to be using our MCP client session to initialize a new session. We're going to be initializing a streamable client session. We're going to now take that session and use the load MCP tools from LangChain to convert that into LangChain tools. So that's essentially all that we're doing right here. So you can see defining my base URL and the parameters, just like we did earlier on. And then we're using the MCP client directly. And you can see here, we're just passing in the URL. That's it. We're just passing the URL. We initialize the session, and then we use the load MCP tools to grab the tools from that session. That's it. And once we do that, we can pass those tools to our create React agent. So this is a pre-built agent from LangGraph, which really makes it super easy for you to build different types of things. Now, actually, I could use GPT-5 here if I wanted to. And maybe I should just do that. Let's use GPT-5 rather than 4.1. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And now I just can simply invoke my agent. Now for testing, I have it right here where I said list out the posts in my post table for my website project. So this again, going into my database to do that. So let's go ahead and test this out. All right, so I'm just going to run it here on my terminal. And this should start running. So this seems like it is running. So let's go ahead into our LangSmith to observe what's happening. All right, so here we can see our actual agent is starting to run right now. So as you can see, we have our agent. So let's look at our input. So list post in my table for my prompt circle website. So it's now starting to engage. So it's using ChatGPT 5, like I said, and here you can see our tools, right? So this is the part where it is converting. It has converted these everything into tools. So we now have our Supabase tools like listing projects, which is the first thing it is doing. It's also executing some SQL right here, which allows us to get our final information. It's also going to go send that back into this. So let's see if I can find it right here. So this is the final output. Here's the latest post from public post in your your prompt circle website. This is all the stuff in terms of everything that is actually inside that particular database. Now, one thing Smithery really helps you to do is to deploy your own custom MCP servers and have them hosted for you. This makes it super easy for you to use it alongside the publicly available MCP servers in their marketplace. So to publish your MCP server, here's how to go about it. So first and foremost, as you can see here, I'm actually on the documentation page, which sort of walks through a few things. Now, here are a few things to keep in mind. Now, the key one I would say is really understanding what the project folder should look like. You need, like, your root folder should have the smithery.yaml. It should have a pyproject.tlml, and we'll go into to see what this should look like. And then you should have a source folder, which should have different folders that are your MCP servers. So you can have multiple MCP servers, and within each MCP server folder, you should have a server.py file, which is where your MCP servers are. So let's go through each one of these inside our code. So first off, we have our main folder here, the financial server. That's our main project. And then we have an SRC file. All right. So we have this PyProject.toml, which has the following. So you want to have your dependencies. So for us, we're using Y Finance and a few things, BS4. We also have some MCP file and all these types of things. So we have all of those in here, which is fine. Now we also have, and we've gone ahead and installed things like Smithery MCP, Fast MCP server. So you could just basically install all of these. Now under scripts, these are the scripts that we have. We have a dev script as well as a playground script. Now Smithery has like a UI playground for you to test your MCP server locally before you actually publish it to their cloud. And this basically shows where we can find the actual server that we're using, which is basically this folder right here. So FinSearch server, which is our server that is inside our SCRC file. And in there's a function called create server inside our server.py file. So basically this is where our entire server is going to live. So you see here we have a create server function, which is where we initialize our server. We're using Fast MCP server here, and you can see all the various tools that we have. Now I already showed a video where I created all of these tools and how I went about creating it in Fast MCP server. I'm going to share that with you in the description as well, so you can see exactly how I went about creating these tools. So we have all these tools and we're returning a server, and that's pretty much it. Now, here's how we actually go ahead and run this. So we can just run this. So basically we're running UV Python -m Smithery CLI Playground, and we're running the full server piece here. So this is going to go ahead and start the playground. So as you can see here, this is the playground, and this is where you can see our list of tools. So you can see all of our financial research tools right here. So let's say, give me Apple's latest stock price as an example. So I can go ahead and do this, and here you can see our tool has been captured, and it's going to go ahead and call our MCP server. All right. So the next step is to actually deploy this. So how do we deploy it? So let's go back to MCP server here, and you can see that there is the two options for deploying this. You can use GitHub to deploy. So when you go to GitHub, I'm going to be using my tutorials, and I'm going to be using the specific folder where I have actually stored the information that we want to use for our deployment. So we can go ahead and use our main branch here. So this is going to go ahead and create a new MCP server for us. So here, as you can see here, is preparing the project. Now this is going to take a little bit of time. So this is going to go through the process of preparing the entire thing. So found the Smithery.yaml file, which is great. It's actually trying to deploy the server. And once it's done deploying the server, we can inspect the server, and then we can see how we use it actually online. So I'm going to pause for now. So while it kind of goes through the deployment process, and once it's done, we're going to check out our deployed server. All right. So it's now deployed, and we can see it went through all the different phases. Now that I have my deployed MCP server, let's go check out a few things. We have some live logs. So this is showing us exactly what's happening. So some observability about what's happening within my MCP servers. You can also see an overview of all the tools that are in my MCP server. And you can also explore capabilities. So you can basically chat with this. So Smithery provides you with this agent, as we saw earlier on, and you can change what model you're working with. So let's just ask it to fetch the stock prices for Apple and Salesforce. And here we're given this note to connect. Once connected, now we're connecting to the MCP server. And now the agent is actually using the server, is going to be using the server to answer questions. So here we go. Here's one of the tools. I'm going to approve this and approve the second. And we should see our responses coming in as well. All right. So this is a really easy way for you to build your MCP servers and distribute them. So I'm actually going to be trying out more MCP servers on this thing and, testing them out, and I'll be carrying you along as we build. Looking forward to seeing what you build. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. If you did like the video, consider dropping us a like and subscribe. And until next time, have a great one.